Third Degree Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast is brought to you by Soccer90.com. Want to get your hands on the newest FC Dallas True Brand collab and score a deal? This Memorial Day only, you get the FC Dallas True Brand DFW hat for 25% off regular price. Sale is online only at Soccer90.com. It starts at 9 a.m. Friday morning. Hurry, this is a limited inventory event. Sale ends on Memorial Day. Don't forget, with the code Third Degree at online or in store, you get 20% off on most other things in the store. Soccer90.com. Third Degree, the podcast, is also brought to you by the Lindstrom Law Firm for wills, trusts, probates, and business law. Call 469-515-2559 or visit lindstromlawfirm.com for a free consultation.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to episode 264 of Third Degree, the podcast. And boy, we're on the heels of another victoire, as just a little while ago, your Burn defeated the Rowdies in Tampa in a game that I think most of us were feeling pretty well, let me put it this way. I think we all had our doubts, or we were all prepared for the worst and hoped for the best, but it was the best as Dallas beat Tampa and will proceed in the U.S. Open Cup by a score of 2-1, and that preceded a game in Houston where Dallas ended up tying everybody 1-1. Buzz, your temperature, please, sir.
Well, to be fair, Dallas, I think, if I just counted correctly, is 4-1-1 in the last 5-6 games. So as bad as this team is, they managed to have figured out how to get results. Granted, 2 of them are against USL teams in the Cup, but whatever. You take wins when they come, and you have to feel better about the results, and results is what matters. We talk about wanting a quality team and a quality performance. We evaluate how they play, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the scoreboard. So welcome to a season of grinding out results, I guess.
Yeah, speaking of results, I was doing a little bit of math before we started recording. In the month of March, the team was 0-4, 0 points out of an available 12. In April, they won 1 game and collected 5 points out of an available 12. And currently, as you said, in the month of May, they're in league play, they're 1-1-1. But for the month of May, they're actually 3-1-1. Because of the 2 Open Cup games. And it is a weird, jarring reality that for all of the doom and gloom and kind of feeling like this is a long season ahead of us, like you said, Buzz, they've been figuring out how to make this thing happen, and they got another win tonight, and I guess we get to play another Open Cup game. Yahoo!
Yeah, I mean, if you like the Cup, which I certainly do, I think that's exciting. That they get to go at the Sporting, which is not a lot of fun. But, that when Dallas holds the opposition under 3, they tend to get results, particularly if they hold them under 2, that goes well. So, that's, again, we talk about this coach being defensive minded and how they set out to grind out these games, and they have a great keeper that keeps them in the games with these phenomenal saves. I'm sure that the coach would like to play better, sexier soccer than they do. He's talked to me about that. But when you have the roster that you do, when you have the injuries you do, I mean, this game tonight, this Open Cup game, if you include Leggett on the bench as he's coming back from an injury, there were 8 starters that would be starters missing, and then if you include the Tuamasi Giovanni Jesus combo, there's, if he is as an extra guy, then that's 9 guys that are starting level players that are missing. So, he's running out all but a second team, honestly. Thankfully, he's got, his starting center backs and 1 wing back and a starting keeper are still around, and that's holding the thing together, and they're getting results.
All right. Well, I'm very curious because I will admit to people listening that I did not watch tonight's game, and I'm sitting here looking at and I'm looking at a very wildly, very ranging different set of stats depending on what site I'm looking at. I'm looking at one that says Tampa Bay had 30 shots.
Yep.
10 shots on goal, and possession was split 51-49. Is that reflective of the actual game?
Yeah, the possession was even. Tampa's firing shots from all over the place. You know, they weren't particularly accurate in terms of getting him on net. But Paz had FCD quoted him as having 8 saves, but with the 10 shots on target, that's probably more like 9 or 10, depending on how many blocks might have come in from somebody else, I suppose. But you know, it's one thing. Cal Jennings was pretty active on their part, you know, and they were missing their leading scorer, which might have made things differently. He was coming off of a red card in the previous Cup game. But Dallas, you know, was typically Dallas. They were typically low blocking. They were typically not really caring that they didn't have the ball, and they scored on their first 2 shots. So they had 2 shots and 2 goals, like in the first 35 minutes. You know, and so after that, they were just kind of passing the ball around when they had it, you know, and weren't really looking to get super creative and hold on. And as many chances as Tampa had, you know, Martin Paz is so on that it's like you never really felt like it was in danger of scoring. Their one goal came on a PK when Dallas, who has no backup center backs, ended up, you know, with Carl Sante in there actually as a 6, not a center back, and he stepped on a guy's toe and the dude fell over. I mean, you know, technically it's a foul, but maybe it's a little soft, and they got a PK. So it's like it didn't really feel like it was ever in danger. Dallas is playing with basically their guys that are all probably USL level guys for the most part, since it's all the bottom half of their roster that's playing. So it was a pretty even game other than the volume of shots. And we've talked for a long time about this Dallas team now, that they're a low volume shot team, but they scored a relatively good clip of percentage wise of those shots. And that's exactly like, it looked exactly like every FC Dallas game we've watched for 2.5 years now.
Dan, what was your reaction to the game or thoughts on the game?
It was a pretty standard Cup game, really. You know, there's a lot being read into Tampa recording 30 shots, but you know, when you look at quality chances, there were maybe 6, 7, which matches up to FC Dallas's own number. You know, one thing Dallas does well is keep players out, restrict them to tight angles, to distance, frustrate them, make them take those easy gathers, or you know, those shots that just balloon over. So I don't know, it's a little bit hard to read into too much. You know, there was a certain clinical edge going forward, which was nice to see. Couple of nice goals for players who aren't necessarily in first team scoring. You've got Iara Mendy through 30 minutes, ready to get back into MLS play. I think that the big thing's really going to be waiting to see what's happened with Jesus Ferreira.
Why, did he get hurt?
He left in the 27th minute, and Leggett had to play the last 63. So good that Leggett got through that, but for Jesus to have subbed out 27 minutes into the game is terrifying in terms of his availability or rest of the season, perhaps. Even
what's the context of the injury or the reason why he was subbed?
We don't really know. Yeah, they were showing a replay of the second goal. Ferreira had supplied the pass to Endeley to set up Farrington, and then when it cut away, Jesus was nowhere to be seen. Then Leggett's getting ready.
Well, I think we can all pretty much at least make an educated guess what that is.
Well, I'm actually assuming it didn't happen on that play because they got Leggett in like while the teams were walking back to midfield. Leggett subbed in.
No, so, but I mean, we could speculate. It's probably it's one of his muscular injuries that he's been fighting against.
But it's been a couple of different things this season. You know, they're all connected. We know that, right? Going back to the last season. You know, so which one it is specifically is impossible to say. Coach had a quote, typical coach quote, post game where he said to Garrett Meltzer, he said, "Oh, we don't really know. It could be a cramp. It could be something else. We'll find out." Well, that's just typical deflecting nonsense. Obviously, if it's just a cramp, you just walk it off a little bit. You know, You don't take a guy out in the 27th minute who's your best player at that point. You know, in this particular game, for sure, let alone like on the course of the season. So obviously, there's a serious concern on Jesus's part if he's making him take him out of the game. You know, so we'll have to wait and see. You know, honestly, it might be better for him in the long term to just go ahead and shut him down and have the surgery, depending on what it is. You know, it could be, we have no clue. We're just completely guessing at this point. You know, obviously it puts him in big danger for this weekend, but, you know, I almost don't know whether it wouldn't be better just to have it be something big enough to get it all fixed, you know, and shut him down for months if that's what it, just takes to get through this thing. And what they probably should have done back in October to be
Right.
honest.
Yep.
Hindsight being 2020.
It may also make things a little bit difficult, even if they wanted to get him in for a scan, because they're practicing in Tampa tomorrow before they fly back, so they wouldn't even have availability to do anything until Friday.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. Okay, so I'm fascinated to learn more about goals by Delgado and Logan Farrington.
Boy, Delgado's was pretty. Man, they laid right across the box, and he blasted that thing from 22 on a dead rope, low, just gorgeous. And Farrington's was similar, balling from the right across the top of the box, and Farrington made a nice play too. They were both really nice sort of team build-up goals. Again, always rapid transition, not taking them around for like 50 passes or anything, but they were both still nice plays, nice concept plays.
I was really impressed with Delgado's because it actually catches him out a step, and he has to really lean into it to try and make a connection with the ball. So it's just a really nice technical adjustment to get really good contact, fire it from the edge of the box into the roof of net. That's it's not one that came to him and he could just get laces behind it. So it was really encouraging to see that, especially from a midfielder. We haven't seen a ton of goals from the midfield of late.
Brian Acosta puts that 30 rows deep into the stands.
Brian Acosta doesn't shoot that close to goal.
That's fair enough.
If you're a Rowdies fan, what is probably your reaction to this result? Do you feel like you got robbed, or you got lost to a better team, or what?
You probably feel like you lost to a better goalie because, if Martin Paz isn't Martin Paz, they might have had 4 or 5.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, when you have 10 shots on target, it's like not every keeper is saving all 8, 9, 10 of those. Whether how many it was in actuality, it's still a large volume of shots on goal. Anything over like 4 or 5 saves is a phenomenal keeper performance. Like his career high in the league is 8, which he's done twice. And he did 7 last game. I think it was against Houston. So Martin Paz is in amazing form, and I'm sure like they could have scored 3 times in the first 90 seconds of the game if Martin Paz hadn't been ready and on fire.
Holy cow!
It was like they hit a post. Martin Paz had 2 saves within the first 90 seconds of the game. So thank goodness Martin Paz was there. If they'd have had any other keeper in their system, from Jimmy all the way down to doesn't matter who, they would have lost that game. Dallas would have.
Well, that is a fantastic result, and unfortunate to hear about Ferreira. And if he's out for a while, that sucks because I'm going to be out in L.A. and it would be awful to have to watch him in 2 L.A. games without Jesus Ferreira. So that would put a damper on the trip for sure, for us, for me, and for them, no doubt about it. Oh wow, that would suck. Okay. Anything else about any of the performances in the particular game? I know we're starting with the game that happened today versus the game in Houston, but I'm interested. I didn't see it, so I'm interested to hear, especially because there were 3 Dallas originals on Tampa. Aaron Guillen, Mr. Eddie Majoma, and Cal Jennings all got to play against their club.
Cal Jennings looked good. I mean, he still looks like he's not Musa in terms of clinical finishing, but he sure was active. He kept getting behind Nkosi Tafari all night long, causing him fits. I will go back to when Dallas drafted him, how much I wanted them to sign him, and Lucci didn't. I actually, where they are now, I think Logan Farrington is better coming out of college than Cal Jennings was. But Cal Jennings was pretty good. And 3 years later, right this minute, Cal Jennings is better, in my opinion, than Logan Farrington. But that doesn't mean that in 3 years, Logan Farrington won't be just as good or better. But Cal Jennings looks to me like a player that deserves to be at a higher level than USL.
Why is he playing at the championship? Why isn't he on an MLS team?
Well, he was with LAFC. He worked his way up to them and played a few games with them before I don't know whether they let him go or his contract ran out, or he just told them, hey, I'd like to start somewhere, because he's the second leading scorer for Tampa. They're number 9. Their leading scorer was suspended for this game because he had a red card in the last Open Cup game. I mean, if that dude would have been around, Tampa might have won this game also, because he has 8 goals on the season and Cal Jennings has 7. So if they'd had a 2-headed monster, it might have been really bad. They're a very, very offensive team. They have a +10 goal differential, and they average 3 goals a game. So for Dallas to keep them to 1 on a PK is actually a pretty strong defensive performance. Again, Martin Paz. I think Jennings will bounce back to the league. I think with LAFC, he was going to get squeezed out by all the superstars they have. He was never going to break through there. So I would imagine it was a confluence of him saying, I got to break through somewhere else. If I can move on to any other good performance by Dallas, I was particularly pleased to see Sebastian Lletget get through 60 minutes, or more, and look really good. So that if he's unscathed, that'll be really good for him to be able to play, because basically Jesus will be out, so they're going to need him back. And that was really it in terms of standout performances, I thought.
Farrington and Kamungo obviously were probably asked to do more defensive work than show off any offensive ability.
It's about the same as all. I don't know about what Dan thought, but I thought Logan Farrington was pretty good. Bernie still looks like Bernie, where he's a bit confused about 70% of the time, and then he has like a really good moment or two, and that's why you keep playing him for the moment or two. So, Dan, what did you think? I thought Farrington was good.
Yeah, Farrington was solid. It was typical Logan Farrington performance. On Bernie's part, like you say, had those little moments, right? He had those little breakout runs, but then he'd kind of slow up a little, let the defender catch up to him, and it had turned to nothing.
Yeah, I don't know why he does that. I think, that's part of what I think he's out of sorts. Like because he's making runs from a different position rather than the wide position. He's on the underneath position. I think he's getting a little confused, doesn't instinctually know what to do when he gets there. So I'm hoping that'll get better with time.
So that means Dallas now, the draw has taken place since just before we started recording, and now they have to go to KC, and will fall in line with where they'll end up playing KC. They'll essentially go up there, stay, and just play them twice in 3 days or 4 days.
Yeah, it's hysterical. In the league, they're at Kansas City on July 7th, and then they're at Kansas City for the Cup on July 9th or 10th. So I'm sure they'll just go up there and stay.
Don't they have a July 4th game as well this year?
They do, but it's right before that at home, against Portland. So, and then they have a game against LA back at home on the 13th. So they're going to have a pretty tight early July window with these games. But as soon as I saw the bowl had Sporting Kansas City and Dallas in it, that's my dog. I was like, oh, Dallas will be drawn at Sporting Kansas City. That's just how it's going to work.
Wow. Buddy, did you name the dog Buddy?
No. That was just, sometimes we say Buddy, like, hey, Buddy. Al.
We've got to get to that later.
Yeah, that's later. The Dallas, the dog naming.
We'll talk about the name here in a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, interesting. So, all right. Well, that means they play Kansas City. Who did Kansas City beat to get to the next round?
It's Tulsa.
Yeah. And if Dallas wins, they will advance to play the winner of Atlanta United and Indy 11, which is a USL
and
team.
They'll host it.
Oh, there you go. Get a home game.
Well, very good. Well, then that takes us back to the game over the weekend down in Houston, where, again, team bailing wire and bondos
duct tape,
ground out a 1-1 result, which again, taking all things into consideration, is probably a perfectly good result, considering everything. And again, Dallas is kind of in.
Yeah.
If you told me the team was going to go essentially 3-1-1 with Open Cup games in the month of May, I'd like, it's not that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, and that one's like a win. When you go to your rival and you win, you tie in their home place and you play pretty decently. I mean, Nico called the first 30 minutes the best they played on the road all year. In particular, if you look at what Dallas rolled out there with Nolan Norris, who I thought played really well, and Delgado, and they were going up against Hector Herrera, Coco Carrasquilla, and Artur. That is a phenomenal midfield that Houston has, and they put up two 20-year-old and 19-year-old against that, and they held their own. I thought it was fantastic.
I wanted to comment about that because I saw people because you had mentioned Nolan specifically in your instant reaction video, and people were giving you some guff about
just a couple
praising Nolan. Well, I saw it in other places too, and I was like, "What game are you guys watching? The kid's 18 years old playing against top level CONCACAF midfielders." And yes, he wore down as the game went on, but he passed at like a 90+% rate for the game, and I thought he was outstanding in that game, and I don't know what people were expecting or what he did wrong to get a bad review.
Well, he wasn't Messi, so I mean, So again, when you're going against guys that are that good and that experienced with that level of international cred, and he's out there at 19 years old doing what he's doing, as you mentioned, 90% passing. And of the him and Delgado, Nolan was the progressive one that was getting forward like an 8. He had 2 progressive passes, which was third on Dallas. Now, granted, Dallas is not an offensive team, but he had a key pass, which was the second best on the team. He had 3 passes in the final third. That's the second best on the team. He only committed 1 foul, right? He had 3 clears, a block, an intercept, 2 recoveries, right? He was fantastic. And for example, like his passing, he only had 1 of his passes get blocked or cut out, and he only had 1 missed control. He didn't get turned over, didn't get dispossessed. The only thing he did bad was get a yellow card. And if you include North Texas, he has 6 yellow cards in 7 games. So that's something he has to fix. But other than that, like for a 19-year-old kid going up against Hector freaking Herrera and Coco Carrasquilla, that is a phenomenal game by him. It doesn't look like a superstar because he's 19. It was a fantastic game by him. And I also want to say that, by the way, before I forget it, Sam Junko was phenomenal in that game too. That was an amazing performance by Sam Junko out of the back.
I just would encourage people to go back and watch the game against Houston because Nolan was doing something Delgado wasn't, and I'm assuming this is an indication that Nolan is actually performing the task of a double pivot correctly, at least within Nico's system, where he was tracking back and forth between marks as Houston had the ball either in their half of the field or in Dallas's half of the field. He would, depending on where the ball of play would go, he would switch his man mark. And Delgado was just typically in some sort of weird lost space. Nolan looked like he actually knew what he was doing out there. I don't know if you noticed that too, Buzz, but I don't know. I was just really impressed by the kid.
I didn't spot that specifically, but yeah, I totally agree that he was phenomenal performance, considering the context, and context always matters. He didn't outplay Hector Herrera.
No,
but he held his own against guys that played in World Cups. It's just ridiculous to be talking about like he wasn't good. I was like, oh my God, dude.
Yeah,
he was fantastic. I couldn't believe he didn't play again in this next game against Tampa.
Well, I was surprised he didn't get the start today too, because I really thought he was quite solid. And again, because this club has been one that I think we all grew to really enjoy the fact that we got to see its own product get in the senior team, and we hadn't seen that a lot lately. It was nice to see that again for the first time. So
it was.
Is your dog choking?
Well, unfortunately, he came to us from the kennel with some kennel cough. So he's trying to get through that. It happens. It's not,
No.
So why? Hold on a second. I'm trying to see if I can get my wife to, because he's in here right underneath my desk coughing.
Because he loves his daddy.
Yeah, he
poor
does.
Poor little dude.
He wants to be around the people. So like when my wife goes to bed, he comes in here and hangs out with me. So she's
more dog
back
talk.
there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so more on the Houston game. Anything? I don't know. It's a good result. Again, I don't know. Here's the problem. Every time we come to record this thing, I don't know what to do with it because I feel like we're just saying the same thing over and over and over, and I don't know how to make this any more interesting.
It's gonna be that kind of season because the Houston game, my man of the match was also Martin's pause. He had 7 saves that night, and he was again fantastic. And I haven't dug into the things like. The club's, the opposition XG to goal, like, is he just making saves that he's supposed to make? Because it sure doesn't feel like it. It feels like he's making saves that he's not supposed to make, that he's keeping goals out. But, he's just really good. And he had a comment about that game, about how great he felt against that game and how great he feels against an Open Cup. So he's in the form of his career probably, and he's enjoying the ride of the Indonesian fans all going crazy over him. And, it's got to be a fun time for him, So I don't know what else to say about the Houston game because the Houston game and the Tampa game look a whole lot alike, except that Dallas was able to take apart the Tampa defense a little more than they were the Houston defense because Houston's got a really good defense like Dallas does.
Yeah, but how sustainable is this? Because I feel like the three of us at some point, probably multiple times over the years that we've been doing this, have said it's okay if every once in a while the man of the match for your team is your goalkeeper, but when the man of the match is for your team is the goalkeeper week in and week out, that's a problem.
Yeah, you're not going to win MLS Cup playing this way, but you could probably squeak into the playoffs if you keep doing it because, you're right that you're not going to win every game like this. You're not even going to draw every game like this, but you're going to be in every game, right? You're going to be able to compete with people. We're going to find out over the next stretch because the next stretch is pretty damn difficult.
Yeah.
So, like, let's not get too far ahead of us, but like you're looking at, at LAFC, at Minnesota, at LA, RSL at home, at St. Louis. I mean, that's a tough stretch. So we're gonna find out.
Yeah, in the next 3 games, they play the first place team, the fourth place team, and the fifth place team.
Yeah, and you might be doing it without Jesus.
And they're all teams that have essentially twice as many points as you do.
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be a long season. They're not going to win a lot of games. I don't think, because Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, you mentioned, goalkeeper being man of the match and not winning games, but kind of just hanging in there. It kind of plays into the whole season strategy, right? When you brought up putting Alan Velasco on the IR, because realistically, when he does eventually come back towards the end of the season, he is not going to be Alan Velasco. He is going to be a shell of Alan Velasco.
Al Velasco.
That too. Same about Giovanni Jesus. Well, that's it, right? It's hang in there, get these guys back, and hope that they're not the typical just come back from ACL, that they are semi-functioning footballers. Yeah, I mean, it's not a strategy that's going to win you an MLS Cup, is it? Like you say.
No, it just it's a weird balance. I want to celebrate the victory and stuff, but none of it all feels very convincing. And maybe that's just a byproduct of me. And Buzz, you the same, that have been watching this team for so long. We're just ready for something better, right? Something more. And this just feels like another one of the many seasons in the history of the Burn.
Oh, yeah. Look, everybody wants to watch sexy football more than they want to watch boring, grinded out football. But, that's not what we're going to get a season of. I mean, it would be a whole lot more fun. I mean, I would enjoy more, even just playing more young, fun kids. You're not going to win MLS Cup anyway. You might as well play some of these young dudes and find out if they can play or not. I mean, you don't want to destroy their personalities or whatever, but
no, but you got a coach who's trying to save his job. That's the problem.
I mean, he should have more reassurance from the ownership than that. But at the same time, watching Omar play more, what good is that going to do us? It's like you might as well play Carl Sante at center back, because at least that's a guy that you're looking at for the future, rather than putting him in as a 6, where I never thought he was good enough as a 6 to play in MLS, and yet they signed him to be a center back, and they keep playing him as a 6. Like, well, which was it? Plain old as a 6.
See, here's the thing that I'm really struggling with, because as I watch this, I keep trying to look for diamonds in the rough or silver linings, or really, stories about young players that I want to feel really good about. And Tafare's having an okay season.
Yep.
In Sebling, I don't get. Kamungo, like you said, looks lost. Delgado hit a really nice one today, obviously, but I've not been impressed by him by and large. Tuamase, I'm sorry. I love him. I really want him to be the player that we all want him to be, but I just don't get it. And Endele is a young guy that I don't, you see, I just feel like I could go through all this, and I just don't feel like there's anything that to really grasp onto and go, wow, there's a thread of something here that is going to continue to build and make you feel like it's going to get better.
I think your feel good story is almost Herb's season having that mini breakout, and Logan Farrington, and neither of those are starters.
Who was the first one you said?
Herb Enderle.
Do you feel like he's playing well?
He was amazing in preseason. He kind of got shafted after the first game. I thought he was, every time he's come in for Tumasi, he's looked solid. He had an assist tonight. Looked great all game.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem with Indole is that against a really quick winger, because he's not naturally a defender, he gets caught and the guy gets a step on him, and that's enough, and he's around him. Whereas they're both two of the fastest players on the team. Tuamasi's more familiar and more defensively minded, which is amazing, and he does a much better job of shutting everybody down in terms of getting to the end and getting crosses in. So, Indole is more aggressive and more opportunistic going forward, more instinctually going forward, because he was a midfielder in college, but so was Ema in it, but it hasn't been coached out of him yet. So it's
right.
There's some potential there in Indole, but, it's almost a moot point. Like, if you're going to be going back to Giovanni Jesus in another month or so, I'm with you, Peter. I just don't feel like this season's accomplishing anything. I don't think anything's being done
Right.
for the future. It's just a get through the season rather than like, what are we doing? Are we, is the team trying to build around some core? Are they trying to go forward? It's like all the core is either really old or really injured. And so it's hard to get excited about it. Are they building with the future with some of these young guys? Not doing that either. It's just, they're just treading water and holding on for dear life. And it makes it crap to watch. It makes it hard to get excited about what might be next.
Okay.
Which stinks, but as you say, Peter, the coach is fighting for his job, so
it's almost like this is like a discussion we had a couple of years ago when it was Lucci coming into that, and you're like, okay, year 3 of a cycle, what's happening? There's not really a lot of forward progression. It feels like there's a need for a rebuild. At this point, there shouldn't be a need for a rebuild.
yeah.
Here we are 3 years later, same conversation.
It is frustrating, and actually, this kind of leads me into another conversation, Buzz, because I thought there was a really interesting back and forth in your Discord, and this is where I take a sponsorship moment to remind everybody listening to this pod, if you're not a member of Buzz's Patreon, you should pay him money so that you can participate in the Discord, which is a fantastic place to talk about this stuff. But there was a back and forth over your frustration that Petar Musa wasn't on the field with the team for this game, and the reason why we were told is that his wife gave birth to a baby, their first child, I guess on Monday.
Yep.
I think I have no opinion about this. I'm not a parent, so I don't feel like I'm the right person to ask this question to. But you had a pretty strong opinion about this.
Yeah, I'm not a parent either, but the thing is that I work in a very competitive business, one in which you have to make sacrifices to get ahead. When a certain job's open, like for example, if you want to produce an NBA broadcast, there are only 30 of those jobs in America. So you do things like I did, like skip your honeymoon. So some people expected or thought that he would not be there. And I'm like, well, the baby's been born. He was there for that. So now it's a day or two later. Why are you not at the game? And people that have had kids, of course, all said, it's okay. You can stay with the kids or whatever. Man, they paid $10 million for that guy. He's getting paid $2.3 million, and he wasn't there for the game. You got a coach that's in danger of losing his job. You got all your teammates you're letting down by not being there. Now, granted, maybe it's a cup game, and maybe it's against a USL team, and you don't want to feel like, oh, that's no big deal. We don't need him. But I'm like, I don't know, man. I just like there's a worlds that exist, jobs that exist, and careers that exist where sacrifices are made. I work holidays all the time. Professional athletes work holidays all the time. Family takes a back seat when you have jobs and careers like this. The baby wasn't due on the day of the game. The baby had arrived, and the baby is fine and healthy. Now, I'm sure, yes, there could be, I'm going to get blasted for this. And maybe there's going to be some extenuating circumstances that I know nothing about. But if everything is fine, I think as a professional athlete getting paid millions and millions of dollars, you should be there to play once the kid's already arrived. That's just my take, and I'm probably going to get a lot of people yelling at me. But, my life in an athlete is more similar in terms of the job pressure and career choices that you make and the sacrifices we make to get ahead in super competitive businesses. This is what par for the course to me, that you would do sacrifices like this.
Well, I'm not a parent, so I probably tend to lean more towards your side of this because I don't have that experience of childbirth or anything like that. The only thing I would throw in there is they've played this guy. They've run him hard since the minute he got here, so he probably had earned a game off, and the timing of it probably just made sense in that. But again, I'm not a parent, so I don't think I have the right to make too much of a judgment call on this. So, I guess ultimately it worked out as they won the game. So how about that?
Yeah, you hear all the time about people that have certain kinds of careers that talk about all the missed graduations, the missed birthdays, the missed this, that, the other thing, the weddings. Is like, if you have jobs like this, it's par for the course. It's like he didn't miss the birth; he was there. So why weren't you ready to play? That's my.
I mean, here's the thing: like, that's a very common thing in soccer, right? If a kid's been born, there's a couple of days. There's that disruption. I mean, the kid was born yesterday. He was expected to get on a plane this morning.
Was it born on Monday?
It was yesterday.
Oh, I thought the baby was born on Monday.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I just felt like, that
Yeah, I get it. Baby's here. You've seen it. It's sleeping. It's not going to know any different.
Right, you say, that's a parent's decision, leave that to them. But as you mentioned, Peter, he's been here for 13 games. He's missed exactly 30 minutes of that.
Yeah.
Up to today. They've really rode him hard. He also didn't have a preseason. He came straight from Portugal, where he was playing pretty regularly since since August. So, I mean, give the guy a break. He needs it. Otherwise, you're going to have another Jesus Ferreira player breaking down in a very critical position, you're paying a lot of money to.
this, that's a discussion I can buy. That I can buy. If it's just the kid, I'm like, dude, be there. But
I love
maybe I'm
hard
a
nosed
callous.
Buzz.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I look Buzz. I get it. I'm a Gen Xer too, man. It's just how we're wired. Especially those of us that don't have kids. I get it, but I don't think it works. I don't think the world works that way anymore, Buzz. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah, well, there are still a lot of businesses and companies where men don't get maternity leave and they have to take vacation days if they want to be there for the birth. But then there are other companies that have built-in paternity leave for fathers as well as mothers. So it just depends on the company. And just generally speaking, professional sports where you're getting paid just absolute boatloads of money and $1 million franchises are on the line and billions of dollars of profit are on the line. They don't take too kindly to that kind of crap. And so I'm not, you make sacrifices. Like, to ask any NBA player how often they get to spend Christmas with their family, the answer is pretty much zero. So, these are the kinds of things that you have to sacrifice to get to this level.
You're talking about players playing on Christmas Day. They know that game is going to be on Christmas Day. It's on Christmas Day every year. The birth,
that was a non-specific example. It's just the level of sacrifice required to play professional sports.
Okay, but athletes, particularly in soccer, do take days off for that stuff. It is a thing. They need to have that regular schedule. That is a couple of days where they are completely out of that schedule. They are completely useless. The other point about not getting paternity leave, that's a social issue in the United States. Not a whole lot you can really do about that. Maybe, I don't know.
I'm under the impression everybody gets paternity leave because everybody I know that's had babies in the last 10 years all got to take time off with their wives after their baby got born. I think that's more
just a world standard.
Well, no, I know, but I'm talking about this country that I grew up in where historically that was not the case, but has seemingly changed and is now the standard here in this country. But maybe I'm wrong about that.
Changed. Yeah, maybe I could be wrong too. I don't have a full-time job either.
Because if you think about it, most countries will say, there's X amount of maternity and paternity, and that's something that's just, on the government level baked in. And some states will have that for maternity, but paternity is typically, company by company makes that decision.
Well, they hopefully things are okay because they're going to need Mr. Musa for the next 2 weeks or so, assuming that Jesus isn't available. Which does beg the question, Buzz, if Jesus is out for an extended period of time, who's going to step into that role? Does that mean Musa's up top and then now Legette's going to play one of the 10s?
Yeah, Llegette would be the answer. It just means, Llegette would likely have been the other 10, with Jesus. But now that if Jesus' D is going to be out, Areola just came back, we think, within the last day or two. So Areola's in that mix, Bernie's in that mix. It'll be fluid. It'll depend on who's healthy. They're going to have to tape this thing together over the back half of the season. It can be Ansa, it can be Siki. There's 5 or 6 names that could be in the mix there.
About Farrington, by the way, is he showing off any ability to play a position other than 9? Is he effective at all in this kind of withdrawn 10 role?
He tends to come wide and play it more like a regular wing, which Bernie kind of does too. I've talked to Coach about that a little. When they have somebody in one of those 10 roles that's not really capable of doing it, they let him slide wider and they'll have the wingback become like what jokingly we would call a false wingback, which they slide underneath a little bit and let the striker go wide. You just have to react to what's happening in front of you and watch it as you build forward. It's not too bad of an adaptation as long as there's a recognition and you cover it. But Farrington's done decently. Like, his goal tonight was coming from more of that under any sort of angle. I mean, he was out there as the 9, but when he actually scored, he came from that Jesus style slosh through the gap, from the top of the box. So he's got a little bit of that, but obviously his style is more prototypical of the actual 9. But almost any of those guys up front can fill multiple roles if they need to.
And with him, you think like when he was in college and he played a lot of wide forward, he kind of played wide left and right. So he's pretty comfortable, getting out in those positions, which if you say there's going to be that wing back underlap, that's plays him pretty nicely and gives you a good crossing position at least.
Well, I guess if you're feeling pretty good about stuff, hold on to your pants because number 1, Salt Lake comes to town this weekend. Not only do they have the second least amount of goals allowed, they are the top scoring team in the Western Conference with 27 goals. They look very solid and very good and come in here on a good streak. They're 3-1-1 in away games. So as kind of glued together with the old bubble gum as Dallas is, that is going to be quite the test. But we thought the same thing going to Tampa, so we'll see what happens out of that.
Yeah, Dallas, obviously, like with the short notice, now we're probably going to guess that Jesus is not going to be able to play because if you're going to sub out that early, that's not a good sign at all. Ariola will have come back sometime during, maybe yesterday, maybe tomorrow. He'll be back in training, but that also means he's not likely to be able to start. Frazier should still be out. Yaramendi came in tonight and played a little bit. Probably not enough where you would turn around and start him this weekend because he only played like 30 on a midweek. That would be tough. As far as we know, Korch is still out. Jesus is out. Paxman-Pamlico's out. Velasco's out. Tuamasi, having missed this game and not even traveled, that means he's probably not going to be available, I would guess also. And Musa, is he allowed to come back yet? I don't know. Maybe he'll be out a couple of weeks with full paternity leave. I'm not sure. Whatever. I would assume he'd be back the next day, but I clearly didn't know what I was talking about. So,
it'll just be a couple of days, right?
I would have thought one would have been enough, but apparently not. So maybe a week is normal. I don't know. Somebody said a couple of weeks would be normal. So I don't know what to tell you.
Most paternity leave for guys is multiple weeks. It's not just, it's like, so I don't know how it works in the league. I don't know if the league has paternity leave laws or the Hunts do. I doubt they do. I would anticipate he'd be back for the Salt Lake game.
Yeah, he will be. You're talking about like a non-essential away trip compared to getting back in training and playing a home game. They're completely different situations.
Well, Coach said they were all in on the cup and that it mattered more than the league. So I don't, who knows? So I would have thought he'd been back for this one. He wasn't. So I don't know if he'll be back for this weekend or not. So if he's back, great. If he isn't, Farrington plays again. Jesus will be out, so that'll be legit. I would assume you keep riding Kamungo. He looked pretty good. Farfan, Junka, Tafari, Ibiaga is a no-brainer. And if Chumasi's out, Indele is a no-brainer. At this point, you still don't have any mids. Yarmini's not playing enough to be able to go, so it's got to be Delgado and either Norris or Siki. Siki didn't kill him in this game, but he's such a liability to me. So maybe Norris goes again on Saturday. So those are the questions: is Musa back, and who's the other midfielder next to Delgado? I guess those are the real question marks.
Okay.
Or does Eugene Ansa get in there for Kamungo, perhaps, or does Siki play high for Kamungo? I think you can start legit, but that'd be for Jesus probably. Now, if Jesus is fine, then it's legit and Jesus. That's easy. It doesn't matter who's the 9.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for them to tell us something about the status of Jesus, although history tells us we may never know. We may have to find it out from alternative sources before we get anything official from the club.
Yeah, the coach had a quote tonight about, it could be a cramp. Okay, whatever. There's a press conference tomorrow. That's our usual pregame press conference on Thursday, so I'm sure somebody will probably lead with that question about Jesus, and he'll probably say nothing again.
Okay.
So we won't know until we see an actual injury report or until we actually see like a news release that Jesus is going to have or had surgery or something. Then we'll find out what really is going on, because between now and then we won't learn squat just because that's the way this current coaching staff works.
Oh, I know what I've been meaning to ask
yeah.
about the game tonight since I didn't get to see it. When I learned, I was a bit surprised that Dallas was going to wear their navy blue kits with the red accent on it against Tampa Bay's outstanding green and yellow. And I in my head, I have a feeling that looked really great on the field.
It did. Unless you're colorblind and then you looked at it from the rear and then it didn't look good. But other than that, it looked great.
What do you mean? Oh,
the
because
back
it's
panel on
all
this
red.
house is red. So like, if you're red, green, colorblind, it looked like the same team's playing. But green, blue looked really great. Yeah, it was Tampa's uniform this is the one they cycle through every once in a while, which has the yellow sleeve stripes and the solid green up the middle, not instead of the full hoops that they usually wear. But terrific contrast. Yeah, it looked really good.
And they got that cool stadium by the bay.
Yeah, I want to go there now. We'll try and figure that out. Looks like a cool venue.
Well, so Salt Lake is Saturday, but then check out this run, boys and girls. It's the back-to-back games in L.A., and if anybody's going, holler at me because I will be there at the Galaxy on Wednesday night and then LAFC on Saturday night. And then, a week later, it's the game. They got to travel to Minnesota. So it's going to be a rough and tumble for the next 2 weeks or so for this team.
Yeah, until they get St. Louis at home. RSL's a tough one, man. That is a really, really good team. I don't know that's going to be. It's weird. It's a home game, and you almost feel like it's going to be a road game because they're going to probably have to bunker big time.
Yeah, Salt Lake to me is an interesting case study for MLS because they're not one of the perennial big dogs in the league with a great start. They're kind of one of those up and down teams like Dallas, and we've seen a lot of clubs come out of the blocks hot at the first half of the season and fall off late. It'll be interesting to see what Salt Lake's fate is over the course of the season, if they're really legit, if there's just one of those deals where it tends to wane after summer. But Saturday will be a good test for them, and for Dallas in particular, because Salt Lake has been playing. Boy.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else about the team that you want to talk about before I get into the stuff that I really want to talk about?
Well, I want to talk about replacing Pomacall this summer because I was thinking about this, and I think there's two ways to go about the thing because Paxton's under contract for next year, and he has a contract just short of $1 million. He's a good player. They're probably going to want to keep him. So there's two things you can do here, two philosophies in my mind because Paul Arriola is not a DP, that means you're spending, like $1 million in GAM to buy him down. So they probably don't have a ton of free space right now, in fact. So you can either take two tacks, I think. You can either buy out Pomacall and totally remove his salary from the board, or you can assume you want to keep him for next year. If you want to keep him from next year, it probably is going to be hard to add like a just short of $1 million player to replace him legitimately. The question is, why would you bother to do that? Like, this season is not going to be good enough. So what's the point when you're going to have him back on that salary and be a good player? So to me, that screams like, I just need to replace him with somebody that's a decent player to sort of get through the season. And I've started thinking about that over the last couple of games when we're watching this team sort of just have to fight and grind, even just to sort of stay in games. And then I watched North Texas play, and they're really good. And Diego Garcia, for them, is just phenomenally good, just like a whole level above the game. And so when I was watching them play, I was like, man, just sign that guy. Just let that be your Paxton replacement because you want to sign him eventually anyway. He's not going to cost you $1 million. He's only going to cost you like a low, like coming up from North Texas kind of salary. Right, he's a pretty good player. He's better than Delgado, in my opinion, already. So you can put him in and start him in games, and you don't have to worry about the fact that you got to pay if you replace Paxton with a player that costs $1 million. Then you have these two players next year on $1 million, and you don't know what to do with both of them. So if you're not going to be ruthless and just buy out Paxton and get rid of him, then I think you should just sign Diego Garcia as his replacement for the rest of this season. So that's the point I wanted to make about Pomacall.
I think that's a really good point, but it totally bums me out.
Well, it does because, we're like, what's the point of like going out and spending a bunch of money and trying to make a run at something this season, right? You don't have the team for it,
right?
Well, especially like what if Jesus is out now, right? For long term, that's right. I just don't see any value in throwing down $1 million just on a guy that can fill Paxton's shoes for the season, when you could sign a guy for a half season up from North Texas salary of $100,000, who's going to be a great player for you in a few years anyway, and you want to sign this winter anyway. Just go ahead and do that, and that's your body, and you can play him. I think he's a better player than Delgado, and might even be as good. He's a different kind of player than Farrington, but not Farrington. Excuse me, Frazier. But he's pretty damn good. You know, he's a dynamic, fascinating player that raises the game and controls the game, and I can't wait to see him at the MLS level and see how he does. So you might as well get on with it, in my opinion. So that's what I wanted to bring up about Paxton.
You know, sometimes I feel like talking about this season. This is a really weird analogy, but it's the one that comes to my head. Is like picking at a scab on your knee that you've skinned really badly. It's like it's starting to heal over, and then suddenly you pick at it, and now it's all a mess again. And that's what this season feels like to me. Is that every time there's a reason to kind of go, hey, you know, all right, well, that's not a bad thing. That's not a terrible result. And you're like, yeah, well, then there's this to start thinking about, and then you just starts getting all gross.
And I'll also point out the difference between putting a season-ending IR on Velasco and putting a season-ending IR on Paxton, because Velasco was a young DP. His salary cap hit is only half of a DP. It's like $250,000, $300,000 or whatever. So if you'd gotten you could have put him on the IR, opened a DP spot, which would have cost you nothing but a full salary slot. Or if you got a young guy salary slot. Whereas Paxton is a TAM buy down. So you put him on season-ending IR, you get out of his contract slot to replace him with another player that's close to $1 million. You then have to also buy them down to get them under the cap. So now you're talking about like 1.5. So you see the complication of like, oh, we're going to replace Paxton. I mean, are you really?
No.
That's the thing.
I had zero anticipation they were going to replace him this season anyway.
Well, they said they're going to replace him, but I'm just contending that like, don't bother to go get like a free agent like this summer, like a big. I mean, unless that's your long-term plan. Now, if that's your long-term plan and Paxton was going to be toast anyway, that's a totally different conversation. I'm just saying, like, if you think Paxton's going to be one of your guys going forward, then don't bother getting like a big, huge replacement. Just bring up Diego Garcia.
Yeah, I just always assume that when they said they were going to replace him, they were going to bring up somebody from within the club or go get one of these no-name, little dudes from South America we've never heard of before.
Yeah, if you want to use your third U22 initiative slot or get a short-term loan on somebody or like anything like that would be okay as well. I just like, if you're going to do that, you might as well just do it with your own guy.
Right.
Why bother getting a dude you have no idea about from whatever when you've got Diego Garcia sitting there, phenomenal player.
Dan, I think the lesson out of this is don't pick at scabs.
Sure. I'm not a doctor, but don't pick at scabs.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to the topic that I've waited all week to talk about,
okay,
which is the official ceremony of the reveal of Buzz and Amy's new dog, as voted on by Buzz's Patreon members and Discord poll voters in the special little channel that we built, or somebody built for us after last week's pod, Name Buzz's Dog. So many excellent submissions had been given, such as El Perro and FC Dallas Furious, Doggy McDogface, Scooby Doom, Carlos Graulezo was a pretty good one. Ranger was a nice one. I liked that. Hunter was a good one. Carlos Ruffies. Anna Barchala.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I like that. But we whittled it down, Buzz. We took all of the votes, all of the submissions, and put it into a poll made up of, I think it was seven options. Seven options. Well, actually 6. I selfishly threw in my own because I'm just that kind of guy. And up for voting of the finalists were Oscar Paureza. That's good. Third Doggree. I like that. Islamico. I mean, who doesn't think Islamico wouldn't be a great name for your dog? Yeah. Deuce made it in there as a tribute to, obviously Clint. And then Martin Pause, get it? And then the one really kind of obvious one based on recency bias, Dude.
Yep.
And then I threw in
me.
Tedek.
I suggested that one.
And I threw in Tedek as the 7th one. Coming in at number 3, third place in voting. Second place in voting was Dude, Buzz. Dude came in and got the second most votes on 27%. But ladies and gentlemen, I am just warm-hearted and I think deservingly, based on this player's performance of this season, happy to announce that Buzz and Amy's new dog name is, drum roll if we had the sound effect, Martine Paws. Congratulations, Buzz and Amy, on young little Martine Paws in your life.
Yeah, fitting for the shirt, right?
That's right. What are you going to call him? Are you going to call him Martine or Pawsy, or what's going to be the nickname?
Well, I'll tell you, funny enough, the shelter that he's from was on Martin Street, so it kind of made sense that he's going to have that name. I don't know. I'll see how it goes. I might call him Martin, like Martin Lawrence.
Wait, you're literally going to call him Martine Paws?
No, of course not. Don't be silly.
Oh, come on.
Well, we'll make that part of his longer official name. That'll be his middle name.
His
Martin
AKC registered name?
Yeah, whatever his real name is, Martin Paz Carrick, like they do when they put the 3 or 4 names.
Oh, man, you're really going to break the heart of the Discord voter.
Well, it's his second name. It's his middle name. It'll be Martin Paz.
Are you rolling with, do you have an idea? Have you named him yet?
Yeah, we have.
What's his name?
Rocky.
Why Rocky?
Because he looks like a raccoon. He's got a raccoon face. So Rocky Raccoon from the Beatles song. We tried to come up with a lot of raccoon names, and Rocky won out. So that's where we're going. As he walks by me, you heard me say his name.
Okay.
Hi, buddy. Why? He's right here saying hello. But
Dan?
Martin Paz was a good one. That was fun. I appreciated that everybody picked that.
I kind of feel stupid for making such a big deal out of it now.
No, it was fun. It was a fun bit. Not like me his middle name. I said it's Rocky Martin Paz Carrick. There you go. It's full name.
The vet's going to be real confused.
Yeah.
I think your dog's going to be confused when everybody sees you out in the street and goes, hey, look, it's Buzz and Martine Paws.
Yeah, that could be his stage name, Martin Paz.
Let's be honest. All rescues in their mind go through at least 5 months where they're like, why is this asshole saying this word and looking at me?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a good one. It's fun.
All right. Well, welcome to the family, Rocky.
Thanks.
Martine Paws Carrot.
Yeah. I'll have to get a better picture of him this time.
Yeah, you need to get the picture you've been farming around with the cone on is hard to tell what he looks like.
It's all I had. I had to leave the cone off for 10 days. I couldn't quite, I couldn't take it off early. So I'll get a good picture.
But you saw more cone than you did dog. That's what it was like a side shot of him or something,
It's a big cone, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
you missed a trick. You could have given him a temporary name of Coney Dog.
I like that, Dan. That's funny. Very good. All right. What else? Anything else we need to talk about before we wrap this up and go for the night?
I think that's it. That's pretty much covers it. Unless we want to start getting into weird topics, but
what weird topic?
Oh, just like things people wouldn't care about, like the academy or whatever, and how well the teams are doing. And
how is North Texas doing?
Well, North Texas is really good. They've only lost 1 game.
Wow!
They're really exciting to play. They're phenomenal. Because Dallas, the first team, has all these veterans filling up all the bottom of the roster spots, all of whom have no help to the franchise beyond the next month and a half. That means all the homegrowns and the young talents that ordinarily would be getting all these minutes are stuck down in North Texas. So North Texas, as a consequence, is really, really good. They beat everybody all the time. They've lost 1 game and it was on the road, and they should have been up 4-0 in that game if the keeper hadn't stood on his head and had the game of his career. So they're good, and as a consequence, there are not really any academy players playing up with them. The only one that's getting any minutes at all is Daniel Barron, who's a player I'm very interested in, but he's only getting garbage minutes, and there's nobody else really getting anything. Now, the academy season will end in June, mid-June, or a couple weeks into June, I think. And then we'll start to maybe see a little more shift. Maybe we'll see some guys get into training, maybe some guys coming out, sit on the bench. But, unless they move up, unless Dallas changes what they're doing and moves up these extra homegrowns, because there's like 10 guys down there right now from the first team playing. So there's no room for any academy kids. So it's completely broken the pathway. It's completely kaput. So I don't know what's going to give on this thing, because it's going to really hurt FC Dallas in the long run. We talked about it a couple of times, but it continues to be true. That no academy kids are getting shots with North Texas, and no North Texas guys are getting shots. I mean, Nolan had a game and they looked great, and then nothing. They didn't play him again. Like, they easily could have played him again in the Cup, and they didn't. They went with Siki instead, who's 26, 27, and has no more upside available. He's like not going to be better than he is. So, but whatever.
All right.
That's the thing, Peter. Like, you talk about, like, what are they playing for? What's the joy? What's to get excited about? That's the thing that's killed my joy more than anything, is the fact that it's like they're just grinding it out with a bunch of veterans that are past it and are not going to help the team get any better ever. It's just don't lose, whereas
They're
they
not
could be playing
veterans,
kids.
they're dudes.
They're dudes, yeah.
Yeah.
Just playing all these dudes, and it just drives me up the wall. Soccer's a young man's game, not a game for people in their 30s. They need to, at the pro level.
Yes,
It's just stupid.
I'm with you.
Yep.
I'm 100% on the same sad train as you, Buzz.
Yeah.
I don't get it either. It's not entertaining. It's not fun to watch. But you know what? I'm gonna go to LA and I'm gonna have fun and I'm gonna root for them.
That will be fun.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out if I can do a Sporting Kansas City double. That'll be fun.
You should.
Yeah, take my trailer up there maybe, and a Doge.
I'm getting to mark off 2 more stadiums. People are surprised to find out I've never actually been to the Galaxy Stadium.
I am
despite
surprised
of its
by
age.
that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised I haven't been there, but I'm really looking forward to both of those experiences. But I'm also looking forward to going to Disneyland on Thursday.
That'll be fun too.
Yes. Good Lord, Disneyland tickets are expensive. Holy crap.
Yeah, they are.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very good, boys and girls. I think that is a well done, wrapped up episode of Third Degree, the podcast. Dan, it's always good to talk to you, my friend.
Likewise.
And Buzz, man, I love a salty buzzard.
Yeah, I'm sure no one's going to agree with me on some of my salt on this one, but whatever.
I like an opinion and willing to die on that hill. I like
Well, I'm
that
a lot
about you.
more open to Dan's suggestion of it being a rest. I can buy that. So I'm good.
Maybe it was just a function of all those things and timing and convenience, Buzz. Maybe it wasn't just that or the other. It could have been both those things.
Thankfully it worked out. Thankfully Jesus didn't get hurt in the 27th minute.
Yep.
Third Degree, the podcast has been brought to you by Soccer90.com. If you want to get your hands on the newest FC Dallas True Band collab and score a deal this Memorial Weekend only, get the FC Dallas True Band hat at 25% off the regular price. The sale starts on Friday at Soccer90.com at 9 a.m. Hurry up, limited inventory only available for this offer. The sale ends Memorial Day. And also, if you want to get 20% off as usual with code Third Degree in-store or online, you can do that at Soccer90.com. This podcast was also brought to you by the Lindstrom Law Firm for wills, trusts, probates, and business law. Call 469-515-2559. That's 469-515-2559. Or visit lindstromlawfirm.com for a free consultation.
And by the way, since we recorded this, Mavericks won Game 1. Go Mavs.
Go Mavs.
Isn't that nice? All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious fans. Don't forget to go buy your FC Dallas Curious t-shirt in Buzz's new store, by the way, which you can find a link to on his website at thirddegree.net. If I ever, because I don't think I've yet to see anybody wearing an FC Dallas Curious shirt out in the wilds yet.
Oh,
You haven't?
Yeah.
I don't think I have, me personally. I think I've seen pictures of people wearing it. I don't think I've stumbled across somebody wearing one out in the wild. And if I do spot you wearing it, I'm going to run up to you and give you a hug, whether you like it or not. So there.
Well, that's different.
All right. And then we will speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast. Oh, wait. I don't even know if I'll be able to do that because I'll be traveling next week. So I may not be here for next week's episode.
Road podcast.
Oh, maybe. We'll figure it out. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Will Peter make it? Won't he? Who knows? Find out next week.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.